Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 4 of our Odd Sports Topics podcast. I am Michael Rachel.
I'm Serena Roboyne.
I am PJ Ellis.
And we are Odd Sports Topics. Make sure to go check out our website at oddsportstopics.com for all the latest articles. We are releasing our Team Name Tuesdays, where we release the history behind the team names in all of sports once a week. And we also release an article once a week on the odd things that occur in sports. Today, we have a new logo finally for our podcast, as you can see on our screen. It is a nice update from what we had before. We're super excited about it. And then our social medias as well. Make sure to follow us at Odd Sports Topics on Twitter and Facebook. And you can stay up to date with all the new things we have going on there. Episode 4 is a special one, guys. It's a very special one. We have a very cool guest. He is the founder and CEO of Pure Sweat Basketball. And he is an NBA trainer for multiple clients, including Jayson Tatum, Bradley Beal, Joel Embiid, RJ Barrett, and many more. He is Drew Hanlen. And I forgot one other of his clients, PJ Ellis, our very own. PJ, do you want to go into a little bit of Drew's background?
Yeah, so Drew is from St. Louis. He went to Webster Groves High School, a popular high school here in St. Louis, where he won a state championship. He was a stud as a player, and then he went on to Belmont University, where he played for 3 years or 4 years. And he was a stud there. But yeah, I was one of his first clients, if you could call it. He used to put on a summer camp back here, one of the early days of Pure Sweat, actually, where I received this shirt. I know I still fit it somehow, but rock the Pure Sweat from back in the day. But yeah, we're really excited to have Drew on. I'm just going to quickly run through his long list of accolades. He is an incredible what he does, but he's also just an incredible person. So obviously from St. Louis, Missouri, he attended Webster Groves High School, won a state championship under legendary high school coach here, Jay Blossom. Second all-time leading scorer at Webster Groves, all-time leader in assists and steals, three-time all-conference, 2-time all-state, 2-time all-metro St. Louis selection, 3-time all-conference selection, twice conference player of the year, 2-time suburban South player of the year, averaged 19.5 points per game, 5 assists and 3 steals as a senior, named Missouri player of the year by numerous publications, played for the St. Louis Eagles, which is now the Brad Beal Elite, which is obviously hosted names as Jayson Tatum, Bradley Beal, and St. Louis greats. Sophomore year at Belmont, he led the Atlantic Sun Conference in assist turnover ratio and ranked 6th in the NCAA leaders in assist turnover ratio. 2-time all academic, all conference. Was a really good soccer player in high school. Gave up sweets until he was 22 years old. Does not drink or do anything along those lines to this day. Crazy story about him in high school. He used to wake up at 5 or 6 a.m. and make 1,000 shots before school every day. Not shoot. He used to make 1,000 shots every day before school. And he said that if he didn't make them before school started, he'd go back after school and make sure he made 1,000 that day. Founded Pure Sweat in 2007 as a 17-year-old. He has this awesome text community now where you can text him for free drills. That number is 314-481-1862. Pure Sweat app, which has all sorts of training and tons of information on how to get better basketball player. He has camps around the world, has traveled around the world. Obviously, Michael listed some of his big name clients. He also hosts some clients such as Mo Bamba, Zach LaVine, Kelly Oubre, Cam Reddish, Jordan Clarkson, Miles Leonard, and many more, as well as some of the top college and high school players in the country. Literally just he's an all-around awesome person, and we are really, really excited to have him on the podcast today. He has some great insight on his life as an NBA skills coach and consultant, and some of the funny stories as we also get to pick his brain about some of his clients and their games and stuff like that. So we're really pumped to have him on.
We're absolutely thrilled. And what PJ did not mention was that he started doing this when he was 17 years old. He started training NBA caliber players when he was in high school. This guy is incredible, and you guys will not believe the interview that he gives.
Yeah, he's truly one of a kind. We're pumped to have him. He gives a great interview, and we're excited for you guys to hear it.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting is, like Serena said, he started with David Lee when he was a freshman in college. Like, how that happened is mind-boggling to me, and I'm sure it's mind-boggling to all you listening right now. So he explains the process of how that came to be in the interview. And he also gives us a little hint into two of his clients, Embiid versus Tatum, who he thinks will become MVP first, or who has the better chance to become MVP. He also talks about the up-and-comer we should all be looking out for in the coming years to make a splash in the NBA. He talks about that and much more in the interview. Let's get straight to it. Here's the interview with NBA skills coach and CEO and founder of Pure Sweat. Here's Drew Hanlen.
We now welcome on the Odd Sports Topics podcast, NBA skills coach and consultant and CEO and founder of Pure Sweat, Drew Hanlen. Drew Hanlen, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for being here. We're really excited.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on.
So, Drew, I want to take it back to your training days, your early training days when you were training local talent at Jefferson School in St. Louis, such as PJ here. You then got your first big fish in David Lee. When you trained David Lee for the first time, you were just an 18 or 19-year-old freshman at Belmont University. So I'm wondering, what gave you that confidence as an 18, 19-year-old college basketball player to say, hey, I know I can help this NBA All-Star at the time, David Lee? And why did David Lee even give you that chance in the first place?
Yeah, definitely. So, first thing is, honestly, I'm going to take you back to a conversation that I had at Cheesecake Factory in Phoenix. Steph Curry had just signed his 4-year, $44 million deal. And so we went and celebrated at Cheesecake Factory. And when we were at Cheesecake Factory, I'll never forget, David Lee asked Steph, he said, hey, are you going to Seth Curry's opening night game next season? And Seth Curry was at Duke, and I was at Belmont, and we played Duke our opening night game. And he was like, actually, yeah, I am going to go over there. Coach K, it's like he had already won like 900 or was close to 900 wins. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to sneak over there and watch. And he goes, he's playing against Drew. And Steph was like, oh, Drew, you coach at Belmont? And I was like, no, I play for Belmont. He's like, hold up. He's like, I've known you for like a year, 2 years now. He's like, you play at Belmont? He goes, David, I got to ask, why are you taking advice from a mid-major basketball player? Like, you're an NBA All-Star. And I'll never forget, David said something that stuck with me. It gave me a lot of confidence. I felt great afterwards. He said, listen, Phil Jackson can't beat Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or Shaquille O'Neal in one-on-one, but Phil Jackson can help Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, and Kobe Bryant be better versions of themselves. And David kind of went to war for me and just basically said, hey, I don't care how good Drew is as a basketball player. I care how much better he can make me as a basketball player. And so that's kind of the answer of, why David would even give me a chance is because he thought I could add value to his game. But to really understand how I got that first chance, you have to take it way further back. One of the first guys that I ever started working with was Brad Beal. And, Brad was a freshman in high school. He, averaged 8 points a game at Chaminade. He had worked really hard with, his brothers and his mom and his dad, on his game, all throughout his childhood, was a good player. And they wanted to accelerate his growth. And so they brought me into the picture. And so I started working out Brad. I worked with him that whole summer. And a lot of times we were actually working out together. So I was player of the year in Missouri, and this and that. And so Brad was working out with me at the time. And Brad's sophomore year. So I won the state championship Brad's freshman year, which was my senior year in 2008. Then I went off to Belmont, and Brad's second year, his second game of the season, he scored over 50 points. And everyone was like, wait a second, you averaged 8 points a game last year as a freshman. You scored 50 your second game in the Pattonville tournament. And he went on to average 24 points a game that year. And he won the state championship in 2009. And so when Brad went from 8 points a game to 24 points a game in one summer, everyone around town was like, yo, what did you do? And he had grown a few inches. He had lifted really hard with his brothers to gain strength. And those things definitely played a big role. But also he had really locked in and worked on his game, worked on his handle, which made him more versatile, worked on, adding different moves and stuff like that. And so I tell people all the time that Brad's success really accelerated my success because it gave me proof that what I was doing was working. And David Lee went to the same high school as Brad. David Lee played on the same AAU team as Brad and I played on. And so there were so many connections that when David came back into St. Louis to visit his family, basically the AAU coaches were like, hey, there's this kid you got to check out. You got to give him a chance. And the first summer, David didn't give me a chance at all. He was like, yo, I'm not working with a dude that's 18 years old. And the next year, I'll never forget, I was in Nashville, Tennessee. I was getting John Jenkins ready for USA basketball. So John Jenkins was the leading scorer in the SEC at Vanderbilt. I was there working him out, and I got a text message from David, and he was like, "Yo, what's up? This is D. Lee." He's like, I'm back in St. Louis. I'd love to get in some work if you're free." Obviously, I'm in Nashville. I didn't care. I'm like, "Yo, I'm ready whenever you are. When do you want to start up?" And he was like, "How does tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. work?" And I'm like, "Perfect. That works great," you know? And so I remember I worked out John Jenkins that night, and I told him, I'm like, "John, listen, I got to go back to St. Louis. Like, I got a chance to work out David Lee." I had worked out some NBA players like here and there for like one workout here, one workout there, but I didn't have any NBA clients at the time. And so I got in my car, packed my stuff. I drove to St. Louis, and I got to St. Louis at like midnight. From midnight till 7 a.m., I watched film on David Lee. I watched every possession of his NBA career, watched all of his Florida clips. I even watched like high school dunk contest and, McDonald's American highlights. I just wanted to know everything I could about David Lee. And I showed up to the gym at, 7:30. I was mopping the floor because I wanted to make sure the floor was all polished because I was like, NBA guys probably are used to like really nice stuff. And, he showed up and we got a good workout in. And there were two big defining moments of that workout that really stood out and kind of landed him as a client. The first one was he showed up like a couple minutes late. And I said, "Yo, get on the line. Like, we got to run." He was like, "Come on, buddy. Like, I'm an NBA player. Like, this is my first workout of the off season. Like, we don't run like when I'm just a couple minutes late." Like, now I know NBA players live on their own kind of clocks, but I didn't at the time. But he did. He jogged. It was not a run. It was a jog. But we together jogged up and back. And so even though it was a corny little jog, it was still like, "Yo, I'm going to hold you accountable for showing up on time." And, he had pulled up in a Ferrari. I'm like, "Bro, if you have a Ferrari, like, you can get here on time. Like, I know how fast that thing goes. I heard you coming to the gym, And the second thing that happened was I was teaching him a move that was called a pound pivot. And what I call a pound pivot, it's basically like a wheel on your back foot, and then it gets you into a hook shot. And I showed him the move. He was missing. And he's like, "Buddy, move on. I'm not going to ever do this move." He's like, "You're just so used to working with guards." He's like, "But I'm a big guy. I need big man moves." And I said, "Listen," I said, "last year you shot 33%, with your right hand and like 27% with your left hand. I don't remember the exact numbers anymore, but with your right hand and left hand hooks." I go, "That's not your strength. We've got to develop this so that you can create more separation so that you can be more efficient with your hooks." I was like, "Trust me, just move your foot in this direction more. It'll open up your hips more, and then you'll be able to make it." Luckily for me, he made like 8 in a row, 12 in a row. I don't know what it was, the number, but he made them all. And afterwards, he was like, "I like that. That was a good teaching point." And so David told me later, like weeks later, he goes, "Just so you know, I was only going to give you one chance so I could shut up the AAU coaches that kept telling me to give you a chance." He goes, "But when you held me accountable and when you didn't back down to me when I told you to move on and you forced me to do what I needed to do instead of what I wanted to do, that's when I knew you were going to be my guy for the rest of my career."
That is a crazy story, especially because David Lee did have such a good career, and the fact that you were a part of that is an incredible story. Speaking on that St. Louis connection, obviously you've trained a lot of the NBA St. Louis guys such as Jayson, Brad. I want to speak about Jayson for a little bit. I think he made a massive leap this year overall, and especially in the defensive end, I think he was a lot better defensively this year. Was that something that you guys wanted to focalize in the offseason and work on his defensive game, or is that something that just kind of came about naturally?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I can take zero credit for his defense. The defensive stuff honestly came a lot from his coaching staff. Jay Larinaga is his player development coach with the Celtics, and then Brad Stevens is obviously a great basketball defensive mind. And one of the things that Jay Larinaga did was Jay basically printed out a sheet of all the all-time greats. List all the Kobe's, the Michaels, all these guys. And what he did was he showed them at what year was their first all-defensive team. And he wanted to show them that, like, "Hey, listen, Jayson, like, if you want to be one of these guys, not only can you be a bucket getter, but you also have to be really good on the defensive end." So offensively, I mean, I worked all summer on, creating, step backs and side step threes, which he actually led the NBA. He shot 42% on side step threes, step back threes, all that. So we worked on creating more threes. We worked on drawing more fouls so he could pick up more free throws, and we worked on finishing at the rim. All three of those categories are up, which is great. So Offensively, I can tell you I played a small part in his offensive development. I always say that the players deserve all the credit because they're the ones that are actually putting in the work. But defensively, it's the Celtics organization. Jay Larranaga deserves a ton of credit for it. Brad Stevens for all the defensive schemes and systems that he puts in place to put his players in a successful situation. But I tend to focus heavier on the offensive end, unless a guy is like very, very defense oriented. Like a guy that plays on the Celtics, Shimi Olajay, who's more of a 3-and-D player, we do focus a lot on defense. Kelly Oubre, early on in his career, it was, hey, we got to get you to be a great defender so that you can earn minutes on the court, and then we can create, kind of your offensive game and stuff like that. But really, my way of developing players is I lock in on one skill or one focus each summer, and then we just get really good at that. And we try to focus one thing at a time so that we can build and add on to their game instead of just working on everything and just being kind of just a older, a little more mature player, a little bit better kind of spread around. I'm more about depth versus width. You know what I mean? Really go deep into a topic instead of kind of spread yourself thin with a bunch of topics.
I have a real quick question. Staying with Tatum there on the most improved player kind of debate there. Do you think it hurts Tatum that he's already has a notoriety in the NBA? He's been to an Eastern Conference final where he kind of led that team with Jaylen Brown and, Scary Terry at the time was having a good series or whatever. But do you think that hurts him versus guys like Bam Adebayo and Brandon Ingram who are just making that step onto the scene in the NBA? Because past winners, we've seen Siakam kind of come from nowhere, Giannis on his uprise, Victor Oladipo after the trade from OKC. Do you think that kind of hurts Tatum in the case for most improved player?
For sure, because I think people expected it. You know what I mean? And so just so you know, Bam has had an amazing growth. Brandon Ingram, amazing growth. Jayson averaged more points per game difference this year than last year than either one of those guys. People don't know the facts behind it. You know what I mean? And so when you look at it, Jayson has improved a ton, 8 points a game more than last season, which is really hard to do when you're talking about you have Kemba Walker on your team, you have Gordon Hayward on your team, you have Jaylen Brown on your team, you have a ton of great role players on your team. So I think it's super impressive what he does. Obviously, he would love it, but the truth is, I think Jayson's going to be on an All-NBA team, which is a lot more important than the most improved. And really, all that it matters at the end of the day is winning. You know what I mean? If you think about the all-time greats, now there are some Allen Iversons and some Charles Barkleys and some people like that didn't, win championships, but most of those guys are due to the Michael Jordan era. But I really think that it comes down to, your ability to impact winning. I always say the number one skill that a player can have is their ability to impact winning. And so what Jayson did his rookie season, take LeBron James to Game 7. You have a chance. They had 2 chances to close out LeBron. They couldn't get it done, but that's what I think will define his legacy. Not only how good he is, but how good he is at carrying his team, when it really matters. And so, I know he'd love all those individual accolades, and I think that he's definitely deserving of most improved player because he did jump 8 points a game. He jumped rebounds a game. He field goal, all these things went up. But I think that he's focused on the bigger picture, which is winning championships, hopefully eventually being in MVP conversations, and then, finally, putting on kind of the longevity of a career that'll put you in the conversation to be a Hall of Famer and to be an all-time great.
You've already mentioned that Bradley Beal has so much talent, especially when you were first working with him. So what is your reaction in response to NBA writers who maybe haven't given him the recognition that he deserves?
Yeah, I've made a lot of low blow shots on Twitter, and I say that people that can't make left-handed layups shouldn't be voting for the All-NBA team, just because I think that there are a lot of writers that were never hoopers, so they don't value a real basketball player. But I mean, Brad averaged 30.5 points a game, career high assist. Literally carried a team that they were missing an all-star, and still. They're still 5 games back of the playoffs. I know they only won 24 games so far, but Brad was facing double teams, sometimes triple teams. Literally, we had to change our offseason program because we were like, all right, so what do you do when we can't use a ball screen because they're just going to run 2 guys at you and have a 3rd guy waiting at the nail for you. So what Brad did this year was special. I mean, he really did. He did something that analytically hasn't been done more than four times since 1975. The numbers that he put up, and he did it. I mean, I know that it was weird how his numbers were because at the beginning of the season his 3-point numbers were down. We actually made an adjustment to his shot mechanics at All-Star break, and he shot 40.5 or 49% moving forward. So he ended up though at like 35 or 36% from three. So overall, if you look, if you're averaging 31 points a game, 6 assists, 5 rebounds or something like that, and shooting 35, 36% from three and 40 something percent, overall 45 or 6% overall, like you're an all NBA player. You're one of the best players in the league. And so that's what Brad prided himself too. Like at the All-Star break, he was voted the number 2 guard by his peers. Now the media messed it up. The coaches just basically, it's almost like they've decided that they're going to do it like the United States election, where they're going to basically, each state gets their own little electoral college votes. Each winning team gets their own players that get to go in the All-Star. I miss the days where the best players were in the All-Star game. Brad Beal is one of the best players. He deserved to be in the All-Star game. He deserves to be on the All-NBA team. But these days, people would prefer just to take representatives from the best teams. So it is what it is. But we all know, every hooper knows that Brad is one of the best players in the NBA. And, we were joking around. We're like, I guess you got to average 40 next year for them to finally give you the respect you deserve. And maybe it'll be closer to 40 than 30 this year, and people will finally stop hating on him.
I just have a quick follow-up real quick. Obviously this year it was on Twitter, NBA Twitter, when I forget what team it was, but they threw a box and wanted him, which is, you don't see that very often in the NBA. What was Brad's mindset when that happened? Was he kind of shook up when that happened?
We actually laughed about it. I remember a conversation we had, but I remember Brad was like, yeah, I was jogging to the baseline. I looked and I was like, are y'all in a box of one? He's like, man, I was since AAU days. Like, you know what I mean? But that's just the respect that he gets. Like, I mean, there's some really, really good players in the league. You see James Harden, when he starts dancing at the top of the key, there's teams that just run 2 guys at him. Steph Curry, if he comes off a ball screen from 40 feet out, they're blitzing him still because they're like, we can't give him a look. You know what I mean? Damian Lillard, same thing. But there are very few players that you will see a box and one on. There are very few players that get that level of respect. So if teams have to completely change their schemes and adjustments just to try to contain you, that means you're doing something right.
Yeah. So you mentioned hopefully Tatum makes that leap to becoming an NBA MVP candidate at one point. One of your other clients is Joel Embiid from the 76ers. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. I'm wondering, which one do you think has the potential to become an MVP first?
Ooh, that is a really hard question. I think winning matters the most. To be an MVP candidate, you have to win games. I would say that I think that Joel is closer when he's healthy. He put up numbers last year that only Shaquille O'Neal did one time in his NBA career. So, last year he was at 28, 13 and, something in 3 or something. And Shaq had only done that one year, and that was his one MVP season in 2000. And so I think that his numbers last year, if the Sixers would have won more, would have put him already in that conversation. And Joel's already a defensive player of the year candidate year in, year out. So I think that if Joel puts together a season where there's no injuries, no anything, I think that he's already in that conversation. And I think that Jayson is one step away from that conversation. But I think that both of them, hopefully they're both competing for those awards moving forward. And, it'd be something that I would love to see.
Our website is oddsportstopics.com. We talk about odd things in sports. What are some odd things that you've encountered through your playing days or your training days? You're working with a lot of big personalities like Joel Embiid, Kelly Oubre. I'm sure you have some stories.
Yeah, I've got tons of stories. Some that I could never share, and some that I can share. But no, honestly, I always look at what I do, and it's crazy to me that, like, I was just a hardworking high school basketball player that had a parent approach me and say, hey, I want to show my kid what real hard work is. They offered to pay me to work out their son, and Mr. Baker offered me to work out Matt Baker. That was my first ever client ever. And I just think about how that randomness of me just working hard in the gym turned into a career where I've been to Dubai and China with Dwight Howard. I've been to Hong Kong with Jordan Clarkson. I've been to Africa multiple times with Joel Embiid. I've literally been all over the world just because of a round ball. You know what I mean? And so that's odd in itself. The fact that I was telling a couple of my friends that one of the first times where I ever kind of stepped back, because I don't really step back. Like now, when I go to NBA games, I'm there for work. Like I show up 3 hours before the game. I'm filming all their warm-ups and I'm critiquing, hey, do this on your shot, do this on your shot. Hey, make sure you're doing this. Or if we know that a team's going to do a certain coverage during their warm-ups, they might tweak it a little bit so they can work on something. Hey, how did that look? So I'm always in work mode. But there were a couple things that happened that made me kind of realize like what all had taken place in my career. One of them was I was in an airport in Spain and I had a kid sprint up to me where I thought they were late for their flight, I'm like moving over to the side, letting them run by me. And they were like, Coach Drew. And broken English. Coach Drew. He's like, I do your workouts every day. And he's like, can I get a picture with you? And just for like me, this was like probably 5-6 years ago. And I was like, the fact that a kid in a different country just sprinted up to me in an airport just because he was like, I do your workouts. And he was like telling me how much better he had gotten. He's like, I averaged 2 points and now I go to 14. And I'm like, that's so cool to me that like, you know what I mean? That there's players all over the world that are doing the programs, getting results, and I'm able to put a smile on their face through the game of basketball. And another one was actually, and it's weird, but so now like my job is to go to NBA games, but I'll never forget that when I was younger, really cool moments happened, which was every year for my birthday, my parents would get me an NBA ticket. And for my Christmas present, I would get the flight to the game. And so that was like, my birthday was in September, late September 28th, and then Christmas. But I mean, that whole first half of the season, all I'm thinking about is I get to go to an NBA game. So early January, just after the new year, I went up and I was going to get to see my idol play for the first time, Michael Jordan, at the Detroit Pistons. My aunt and uncle lived in Detroit. He had a box. He was with DuPont at the time working there. And so we got to go to the game. And so one of the cool things we did was before the game, we got to shoot on the court, like everybody, all the kids in the line. But then during the game, because I made it, I was in one of the pools where I got to go and actually do one of the timeout things where you had to make a layup, a free throw, and a three-pointer. Not sure, like, how sometimes when you're younger, your memory changes, but I do know that I made the layup. I think I made my first free throw. I could have missed one, but I think I made my first free throw. I airballed a three-pointer, and then I made a three-pointer. So everybody won, like Little Caesars pizza or something like that. And I remember when I made it, I looked down because I was like, all right, I know Michael Jordan is going to be like, come over and hug me and tackle me. And Michael Jordan wasn't even looking, but I was hoping he was. He didn't even see me. But Grant Hill came out on the court and dapped me up. So right away, once Grant Hill dapped me up, he was like the best player on the Pistons at the time. I went up and I bought, back in the day, I don't know if you guys remember this, but they used to have reversible NBA jerseys that you could like flip over so you got the home and the away. So I bought one of the Pistons Grant Hill jerseys. And so 2 years ago, Grant Hill came by to do a special on Jayson during the pre-draft process. And I say, Grant, I got to tell you, you became one of my favorite players. I was like, you didn't cross Michael Jordan's territory. Like Michael Jordan was the GOAT, and Michael Jordan was like my idol. But I said, you became one of my favorite players just because you gave me a knuckle. And it was cool to me that when I was in Spain and stuff like that, I was like, you know what? I'm not on the level of Grant Hill. I'm not on the level of the NBA players. But the fact that I can make somebody's day by just taking a picture with them or giving them words of encouragement or, providing instruction to them via DMs or text messages, etc., that's pretty cool because I remember how I felt when I just got a nux from Grant Hill congratulating me on winning the crowd some pizzas,
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. You obviously work with some of the top NBA talent in the world, but I know you also work with some of the top college players and even sometimes high school players. So who should the world be excited about coming up in the basketball world? Who should we be looking out for that's going to make a splash in the NBA soon?
Emoni Bates. Emoni Bates is I love just watching his dad and him have been working ever since they were so young together. I just love how they kind of move on their own wavelength. They keep their circle really small. I've been fortunate to provide a little bit of help here and there, and he's just so special. You know what I mean? The first time I saw him in the gym, and first time I had him in a workout, I let him that week work with Jayson at one point because I was like, this kid is unbelievable. I think he was maybe in 8th grade or 7th grade at the time. But I love seeing players that are old school grind mentality, and him and his dad, the way that they work, just following, all the stuff that they do and the way the details and stuff like that. You just don't see it much anymore. Like players these day and age are all about highlights, are all about, Instagram views, and just to see the work that his dad and him put in on a daily basis and see the results that are happening because of it. I think that he's going to be really, really special and one of the best high school players I've ever seen.
It's a big compliment coming from you.
You said Jayson Tatum, obviously we've all seen, has developed that kind of like side step back. And that is becoming a deadly move in the NBA, but also the fadeaway as well for like a big man down in the mid post. If they're able to turn around with that height advantage of like 2 or 3 inches, that move is also untouchable. So which move do you think is more untouchable or has the potential to become like a cheat code in the NBA? The fadeaway or like the hardened step back?
I think both. The new era NBA is all about shooting more threes, getting to the rim more, getting more fouls. So that would heavily favor the sidestep three just because analytically it's such a better shot. But the fadeaway in crunch time and in playoffs, like if you look at the playoffs, the whole like don't shoot mid-range conversation goes out. I mean, literally, I did a big study on all the NBA champions. If you think about Michael Jordan, if you think about Dwayne Wade, think about Kobe Bryant, you think about Hakeem Olajuwon, you think about Tim Duncan, you think about, you start going down the list and like really all those dudes got buckets in the mid-range, mid-post or mid-range. And so even Kawhi and KD, the last couple of years, you know what I mean? Like those guys are all, when it comes playoff time, a bucket is a bucket. So I think that the sidestep threes and being able to generate more threes is more of a cheat code in today's day and age just because analytically they're so much better. But being able to just fade away, recline back, and hit big shots when it matters in the postseason, I think that's what what really matters.
So social media has become bigger than it ever has been. Even like from 2014, I could argue it's made a huge step. How much do players invest into social media? And do you think that the pressure of like people having all their opinions on social media and they can read that available, does that motivate them to become even better? Because I know on the Russillo podcast, you talk, some NBA players get to the NBA and they become content. Some players want to make that next step. Do you think social media plays a part in that?
I think a lot of NBA players are smart enough to just use social media for branding purposes. They know it's a money generator. They know it's a way to connect with their fans. It's a way to get more all-star votes, et cetera. So a lot of people are more brand focused, and use it as a business, revenue instead. There are some people though that they get in their feelings and they see the comments and they want to snap back or they feel some type of way when they get, hated on and stuff like that. But you're getting paid millions of dollars to play a game, you know what I mean? And so I don't think you should take it too seriously, especially, you should never value somebody's opinion that you don't know personally. You know what I mean? Like I always say, if you don't know them personally, don't take it personally, So that's my advice. But I think it can fuel people. I know there's times where, like I was joking around with RJ the other day in the gym because there was somebody that Zach Lowe didn't put him on the top 10 rookies. And he goes, I was in every top 5 category. And I was like, then I wanted him to go back in for like a third workout. We've been doing 2-a-days. And I was like, man, if I was not a top 10 rookie, I would probably go to the gym tonight. And he was like, F you. All right, I'll see you at the gym in like 20 minutes. You know what I mean? So there are I like to use it for fun. Like, but I've got screenshots, Zach LaVine and I have screenshots from way back when people were saying like, why is Zach LaVine going to the NBA? He's not even ready for like the G League and stuff like that. And we got screenshots, and every once in a while I'll send them to him and just be like, hey, just remember, like, this is where you were at some point. And it's also fun, like, to screenshot stuff like that just so that you can give the reporters that were wrong just complete trouble. But, there's no way that they would know. I got it right here. Here's the quotes for Zach LaVine, so you guys can actually see it right there because we're on the Zoom. Amazing to me that UCLA's Zach LaVine thinks he's ready for the NBA, not 24 hours after losing. He's not even a decent college player yet. That was Seth Davis from Sports Illustrated. Then ESPN's Jeff Goodman said, Zach LaVine's going to look great in a Maine Red Claws uniform next season, which is a G League team. And then CBS's John Ralstein said, don't see how Zach LaVine is going to have an impact in the NBA when he couldn't even have a major impact in the NCAA tournament. We've got that screenshotted, and we just always laugh. I mean, Zach averaged 26.5 points a game this year and, was a top 20 scorer in the NBA. But, yeah, like the NBA guys, they put it as like a chip on their shoulder. And a lot of times I use it for fuel, and sometimes they get mad at me because like, man, I don't care about it. And I force them to almost care about it, where I'll be like, so-and-so said this, man. I mean, I know it doesn't matter, but so-and-so, thinks, you know what I mean? So me I think my greatest skill is, besides my ability to care about my players, is my ability to shit talk my players into doing things. And I think that, I use all the social media stuff. I have a army of interns that send me everything that is tweeted and stuff like that. And so I always make sure that I make my guys aware of it just so that I can add a little more motivation.
That's funny. This is a personal question, obviously, from St. Louis. I'm pretty biased, and I think you might be a little bit too. But St. Louis has some really good basketball talent, not only in the NBA, but we send really good players to college, and our high school scene's incredible. Where do you think that ranks nationally? I know, obviously, some bigger cities have more people to pull from, but St. Louis has to be up there.
If you talk about just cities, so I know if you're talking about like the whole state of California, I mean, it's just so big. But just cities, St. Louis in the last, 10 years has been up there with anybody. I mean, you think about all-stars, we've had Brad Beal, we've had David Lee, we've had Jayson Tatum. You think about top 10 picks, lottery picks, you think about Brad went number 3, Jayson went number 3, Ben McLemore went number 7, Otto Porter, who's not really St. Louis, but he's in that St. Louis area, went, number 3 as well. You got a bunch of guys like that. Then you've got guys like Caleb Love, who's an All-American this year, that's going to be in next year's draft as a lottery pick projected. I think that it's been amazing to see the growth, but I really do think that it's because the whole culture changed. Like, if you think about it, Brad gave hope to a lot of St. Louis players because they saw it was possible. And then also the training culture changed. Like, I mean, all those guys have come up through the training ranks, and now like there's a training culture in St. Louis. I mean, you were in that first group of, guys, PJ, where you were at the gym. Like, we had 25, Division I players in one academy. I mean, think about that. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like they were all scattered around. It was like everybody was training and they were competing against each other. They were getting better. They were pushing each other. And that just breeds that competitive nature that leads to, kind of getting good results. And so I think that the culture of basketball has changed because, one, they see that it's possible because guys have done it. And then, two, I think the training is just, it's top notch, where there's just a systematic way to get these guys to grow and develop over the years that, has proven to work.
Yeah, real quick too, I just want to mention, I mean, you said that. I was going to give credit to Larry Hughes, for kind of starting that whole, first big player. But not the Eagles too. I mean, now Brad Beal elite, but that was your AAU team. That's one of the top AAU teams, I feel like, in the country. They get a lot of credit for developing, and being a big part of St. Louis basketball.
No question. And I mean, and you had a couple of years where they came close to winning national championships with Brad and Jayson. I think they both finished second each year. So, I mean, just them competing at such a high level, just really kind of puts everything in perspective when they do compete against other cities' top talent.
So I'm a recent graduate from St. Louis University. So I got to know, how close was Jayson Tatum to going to SLU in 2016?
Really close, to be honest with you. I mean, there were conversations where he was like, yo, I could just stay at SLU and just train and prepare for the NBA draft with you and go out and average 30 a game and be a one and done. But, I think looking back, he's happy that he went to Duke just because it was great for him to learn and grow under, Coach K. It obviously built up his fan base like crazy, which has helped him in all the kind of endorsement deals and stuff like that. And I also think that, him being able to compete in those national games is super important. But, I met with, some of the SLU coaches when I was in St. Louis, and they've done an amazing job at being super competitive. And, they've been starting to get more homegrown talent. And I think that it's starting to be more cool again to stay at home and to compete for the Billikens. And so, as a St. Louis guy, I love when local talent stays home. Obviously, I also applaud the guys that are able to go to one of those blue bloods or one of those schools that really pushes the boundaries and challenges them at the highest level. But for the guys that maybe don't have those blue blood offers, I think it's really cool to stay at home and to play for the Billikens.
Yeah, St. Louis was so bad 2015 and 2016. They just had a new coach and change with Travis Ford, and he was the one that really turned that around with recruiting. And I wonder if it would have been a different story if like Jayson Tatum was just going into college now, given the state of the Billikens now versus they were in 2016. But obviously, Jayson made the right choice with Duke. But
yeah, no question. I'm one of those people. I never look back and kind of regret things. I just say, hey, they played a part of my life, and that's how life shakes out.
So what's the next step for Pure Sweat? Like, what are you working on? What are you doing?
Yeah, so the couple things that I have for Pure Sweat. Right now our app is the number 2 basketball app in the world. So just being able to provide instruction, very affordable. We keep it at $5 a month just so that people get unlimited workouts. I try to just make it accessible for people that maybe don't have the ability to hire a personal trainer, et cetera. I think about the young me. Like, I wouldn't be able to throw down a bunch of money for that. So that's why I built the app. And then I've got a text community, that people can join. It's 314-461-1862. I send out free drills a couple times a week. Again, a better way to connect deeper with kind of, a audience. And then other than that, I started a virtual basketball school. I've always wondered, like, why you can go to school and study, like, math and science and social studies, but you can't go study basketball. You can't study like triple threat and shooting and stuff like that. And the reason was there's no such thing as a basketball school. So I built the first ever basketball school and put it online and just allow coaches all over the world to kind of learn my systematic curriculum and so that they can help players. But really nowadays, all Pure Sweat is I'm just trying to make a bigger impact. I'm trying to impact more coaches, more trainers, more players. And if I can help people, experience, the amount of kind of happiness and the amount of smiles that basketball's put on my face, if I can help them experience that same feeling, then I think I've done my job. And so that's the big thing with Pure Sweat that I'm focused on now is just impacting as many lives as I can through the game of basketball. And basketball is a great platform to do it.
Yes, and that you do. And if you aren't a part of his text community and you want to, it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen a trainer do before. Just being able to get free drills and hear from one of the world's top in basketball trainers is really incredible. I would love to sit here all day and pick your brain, but I know you are a very busy person, so we will let you go. But we want to thank you so much for being with us. We can't thank you enough.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks for having me on, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. Getting the podcast rolling, starting young and stuff like that. I love it. I love young hustlers, and I love thinking back of the old days. I said it on a podcast the other day. They're like, "So was basketball your first like training? Was that your first like business that you did?" And I was like, "No, I had like my neighborhood buddies like working for me when I was doing a lawnmower service. I used to burn mixtapes and CDs and sell them to my classmates. I used to do lemonade stands, shovel snow." So I love that you guys are hustling young, and just know that all the hard work is definitely going to eventually pay off.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate it. Thanks for being on.
Thank you so much.
big thanks to Drew Hanlen for being on our show today, episode number 4 of the Outsports Topics podcast. Very nice of him to come on. We enjoyed it. We hope you all enjoyed it as well. Make sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Outsports Topics, and visit our website, outsportstopics.com, where you can find all of our articles on team names and all the odd things we cover in sports. For PJ, Sarandon, and I, we appreciate you all for being here, and we look forward to episode number 5. Big thanks to Drew again. Good night.